yourself quickly?
Sure. I'm Ben. I'm from the Noria. I'm the co-founder of the Noria and also CEO. Actually, Noria is one of the key contributor of the BNB Chain, including this BSC and ZK BNB. And recently, we also announced the Optimus rollup for the BNB Chain. Absolutely, we are super active for this Greenfield contribution as well. We are very happy to share this latest update for the Greenfield. And over to you. Yeah.
Sure. Thanks, Ben. So first we're going to discuss about like what is decentralized storage and what we have today or previously and why we want to move to the decentralized network as well. So previously, as we know, like enterprise invest a lot of money inside storage, inside cloud storage as well. So they have huge data set, but everything is more centralized nowadays. So there is like how we can move from a centralized storage into a decentralized way by helping enterprise as well to move to the new storage business. There is really like how we can provide programmability on storage as well in a decentralized manner, and how we can provide financialization as well with data. Something that is missing a bit nowadays in the decentralized environments. Like with centralized storage, people can already monetize data, but they don't really own it. So the aim is really like how we can move to the next stage. So one of the main innovation of Greenfield as well, and let's maybe roll back a bit on why we created this white paper as well. So as we've been seeing in the past few years, we had the rise of DeFi with the decentralized finance platform. Then we had NFT, digital ownership. And now it's like how we can create something new that can really help users to truly own their assets and monetize on top of it. So this is basically the aim of this new white paper, which is BNB Greenfield, like how can people truly own their data and monetize it. So one of the main innovation of Greenfield is really rooted in this deep connection with BNB Smart Chain. Basically, BNB Smart Chain is our EVM-compatible blockchain, and Greenfield is another ledger, but we basically have key connection between both, which is really going to help us to monetize and program on top of those data. So we have as well specific base tool, which is like the account is going to be shared between the BSC and BNB. So for a user, it's going to be truly seamless to interact with both blockchain. And as I said before, the user is really going to be able to truly own their assets more freely and independently as well, and monetize on top of it. So let's imagine you are like an author, you have a blog, you want to publish your work on a publishing website. So how you can really own the data that you publish and monetize it as well, resell it. So this is what Greenfield is truly made for, to truly own your data and automatically resell it in a programmable way using smart contracts. I don't know if you want to add something on top of it, Ben, or if you...
Maybe later. Yeah.
Okay, sounds good.
Yours, yeah.
So here we can see like a little diagram of how the cross-chain is working between BSC and Greenfield. So it's really something that the BNB team as well is used to do, because we've already have a dual blockchain system. So now we basically extend it to a third layers. So basically we have on the side, we have Greenfield network with the validator, the storage provider. So it has his own ledger, which is Tendermint based. And then on the other side, we have the smart chain, which has the application layer, the resource monitoring, and the cross-chain contract, which is building as well. So as we can see, we have different layers, which are basically going to handle the forwarding, the broadcasting of events from one chain to the other. And in this way, for example, like a smart contract is going to be able to change the ownership or change the read access to a specific file that is stored on Greenfield. Of course, Greenfield is not going to store the data itself. The ledger is going to store the metadata of this file, but the file is going to be stored on a storage provider. So I'm going to talk a bit later about the storage provider part and how it is playing a role as well in Greenfield. So here we can see the core, like what's under the hood. So basically Greenfield, it's a dual system. Let's say you have Greenfield Ledger, which is Cosmos app-based. There's the validator. Validator are going to do proof of challenge towards the storage provider. And on the other side, we have a network of storage provider. So we have multiple storage providers that are basically providing storage to users, and which are basically high storage service infrastructure with high redundancy and data availability as well. So basically, Greenfield validator are going to challenge as well storage provider to see if the file is available or not. And based on the challenge, if the storage provider is not able to comply and show the proof of data, then they are going to get slashed. Basically, to be a storage provider, you need to stake a total collateral in order to be active in the network. What can I add as well on this one?
I think next slide may be more important to explain that the whole structure, I believe. Yeah.
I will first say on this one. So just about the storage provider for the users. So we are going to have multiple storage provider, not only one, of course. So the user is going to select his primary storage provider, And then we have secondary as well that you will see later on the different slide. But something that is key in Greenfield is that from a fee point of view, the user is going to see the fee in USD and not necessarily like in a token or a crypto asset. So for the user, it's going to be something that is really like tangible, like USD is something that they are not aware of. They can compare with other systems as well. But under the hood, the system is going to do the payment flow using BNB token. So which is something that is quite innovative as well in the industry. So here I'm just going to describe a bit more about the validator and what they are doing, what's the purpose of the validator as well. So as I said before, Greenfield Validator is a Cosmos SDK logic. It's a Tendermint core, so it's Byzantine fault tolerance. And the validator as well are going to be able to, they need to stake collateral in order to be active as a validator on Greenfield. One of the main mission of this validator is to prove the challenge to the storage provider to ensure that the file is here. So one way for the validator to get reward will be transaction fee, proof of challenge. So if there's potential fine to storage provider, they're going to get the reward as well. And then we are thinking as well of other reward mechanism that is still like in a white paper stage. So we are looking forward for other people as well to help us in defining how the token economy might be sustainable within Greenfield. Quickly about the storage provider as well. So we can have multiple storage provider. The storage provider is really going to be responsible to provide the access of the file, the upload, the read, and the management as well to get clear read and download availability as well. So here we can see as well the replica. So how do we do for the data availability compared to others? So unlike other decentralized storage network, Greenfield data availability is incentivized from a financial point of view and is protected as well, is protected from a slashing point of view as well. So we ensure that the storage provider it's mandatory for him to have the file active, because if he's deleting the file, which would be here, is going to get slashed his bonded BNB, for example. So here we can see as well how the replica is working to ensure that basically there is erasure coding available. So we see that we have the primary, let's say, storage provider on one side, and then we have multiple other storage provider which are incentivized as well. So they are going to receive a cut of the fee in order to save a certain byte of the file as well, to ensure that the replica of the file is like replicated among multiple storage provider. So even if the main storage provider is going down, all the other storage providers still have a copy of this file as well, and they are incentivized to have this file too. So it's going to really push the competition within storage provider to provide the best service for the user. Here we can really see Greenfield in action. So it's like a whole map of network. It might be a bit complicated to look at it at first sight, but on one side we have the BSC, which is the main EVM layer that we have, the smart chain. On the other side we have Greenfield, and we have like relayers, which are basically going to be able to relay events. When I say events, like again, change of ownership, read access, right? Add user to a specific file, remove it, delete a file, and so on. Then on the bottom we have the storage provider, which are going to store the file. So the storage provider are going to send as well transaction into Greenfield. Those transactions are going to be the metadata of the file. It's going to be object-based, so like who has access, what's the link, how we can access it as well. And I say the validator, they have basically a watch mechanism. So they need to challenge storage provider to ensure that the file is here. As an application level, you can directly interact with BSC and with the storage provider directly. You don't need to go through Greenfield, for example. It's just basically the secure and the governance mechanism of the whole infrastructure.
Yeah, maybe I also want to add a little bit color for this one, especially for the developer, right? So just imagine when you are like doing, upload or manage your like either image file or streaming these kind of files, right? Where do you want to start? So typically you may start from this actor upload this kind of information, right? But you need to make sure, there's by the way, this API, right, is like purely S3 compatible API. Right, so this is something like currently Greenfield and NoReal, we work together to try to make sure this one compatible, because we know a lot of NFT projects, they are using this API right now, right, using S3. However, we want to provide the very compatible APIs as S3, right, to make sure you can reuse most of your codes there. And another important part is after you upload your data here, right, it will automatically create the Greenfield resource and also Greenfield resource mirror. So because the BSC is EVM compatible, which means you can go through this Greenfield resource mirror, right? Can access your storages, right? Through this kind of access control as Arno just mentioned. So with that, you can have a much better resource-based programming, right, stuff to manage your like NFT for your images, for your like streaming, etc. And of course, later you may can see that how do they like manage this kind of access control for this part. So with that one, we can link this storage and the EVM together, right, through this kind of the connection there. So that's the whole idea, is to make it like a very seamlessly integration between the storage and the EVM. Yeah, I want to add a little bit color for this part. Yeah.
No, exactly. We really try to make it like inclusive for Web2 developers. So it's going to be easy for them to migrate to Greenfield, because at the end, it's not really a migration, because APIs are going to be standard like cloud APIs. So they're already aware of like how to use it, how they can manage it. So from a business perspective, it's going to be much easier as well for application to handle such kind of storage network as well. And again, as I said, the payment flow, for the user, it's going to be charged in, the number is going to be a USD number, so it's something that you can really compare with other. But under the hood, everything will be in BNB. So now we're going to show as well a bit of like some comparison, like how do we compare Greenfield maybe compared to what's happening today, and why as well we've made it. So here we can see a nice comparison table that's NodeReal team made like for us as well. So we can really see like on one side we have Greenfield. We try to compare it with like Filecoin, Arweave, or Storage, which are basically kind of the industry leader as well today in the market. So we can really see like from a data redundancy perspective, like we are really like erasure coding by default. So basically a little bit like Storage as well, compared to like a replica in other system, which is really like ensuring a higher availability and guarantee of the file redundancy. So as you know, like with the file I showed before, like this erasure coding is really helping to make sure that even if one node or one storage provider goes down, the file is still accessible and you can reconstruct it as well. So it's something that is really important. Again, for the data availability, so we really have like, unlike all the other, we have a really like financial incentivization for the data availability, and as well as a punitive mechanism in case the file is not here anymore. So we are really like punishing storage provider if they are not doing what they are supposed to do, which means that over time, the only storage provider which are going to be alive are the one which are really providing the best service for our users. So there's going to be really a high competition among all those storage providers in order to get the most users, thus the most like financial benefit as well at the end, because they need to be profitable as well, that's for sure. You want to add something else?
Sure. So I think that, if you read this kind of the whole diagram, right, this kind of comparison, by the way, I see somebody like takes a photo. No worry, you just go to the NodeReal, you see this blog, because we really published one blog named 3 Things Matters for this to understand this Greenfield, right? So there are several major areas. One is how can we make sure the data are really distributed, and also make sure it's saved efficiently, right? So through the different algorithms there. So this data redundancy, data availability, persistent mechanism are for that purpose, right? We need to make sure these areas. However, if you go through this algorithm, right? So absolutely we are, work with the BNB Chain, try to refer to a lot of the best practices from the Arweave, Filecoin, and Storage, right? So you can see that we absolutely introduced a quite similar process there. And at the same time, right, so the quite innovative area is how do you protect who can access this data? So this is maybe quite a new innovative idea for the Greenfield, right? They really introduced native access control. Later I can show, some of our, because for NodeReal we provide the tooling, right, for this kind of empower this one. You can see some of our preview versions. And another part is also, we need to make sure for some of the data, you do not need to always persistent forever, right? You can have a temporary solution to delay that. So that's majorly for the data and the data access part. And another part I just mentioned is for the programming and consistent API, right? We want to make sure you can, using your traditional EVM understanding and your S3 access, right? This kind of API, you can use that one, right? So, and the last part is the payment, right? So we need to make sure you have a very flexible billing system, right? So here in the BNB Chain in the Greenfield, right, they introduce some of the streaming payments, which means pay by use, right? So you can very easily to use that one. So with that, maybe I can switch to the next page, right, to demonstrate.
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, do you want to add more? Or?
No, I think it's okay. It should
yeah,
be quite
so
competent.
I really want to leverage this opportunity, because NodeReal is one of the infrastructure provider. So we want to provide the tooling to empower the storage adoption of this Greenfield and also decentralized storage, right? So we provided this kind of the UI. If you are familiar with the storage J, you may be, or Aviv, etc., you may be quite easily understand this kind of look and feel, right? So basically, you can select your primary, they have a dashboard. You absolutely can select which storage provider as a primary or like a secondary. It's based on your preferences, right? Based on the ranking. So we provide this tooling. You can decide. Then we have like buckets, right? You can manage your this kind of the different files. We have the similar concepts as S3, buckets, photo, files, right? Different kind of files you can persistent into your system, into this Greenfield. And of course, you have a very easy access control there through this kind of, you either assign to the group of the people through the, by the way, the group of people here means the group of the address, right? They have access to your files. So we have this kind of access control will be introduced here. And of course, you can have a, oh, sorry, there's no payment. Yeah, it looks one page I missed. So we do have like a payment step as a wallet, right? You can support the payments and very easily pay by use, right? So this is something like we are currently in the preview version. I believe BNB Chain maybe will announce when that testnet or mainnet, right, will be happening there.
Right, so we are still like early development, so it's still white paper, so there's a lot of stuff still need to be shaped, so that's why we want to have like, your feedback as well. Nevertheless, we are, so if you want to have kind of an early access to the preview, the code as well, so soon we are going to release our alpha, beta as well, so probably before end of this month, so we are March, right? So yeah, before end of March, we should provide already some specific access to like early developers who want to help us to debug, see what's working, what's not working, how we can enhance as well the documentation. So it's really a community project as well. So we really want to have the community which is helping us. So maybe we have as well like some time for some Q&A, and I guess there's a lot of questions probably from people. I know that some already discussed a lot, so feel free to ask questions again.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. This is a great presentation. I was wondering on the storage architecture slide where you all had the different storage users, is that a hash of the concatenation of all the storage hashes? Or are you all doing some type of arithmetic operation on the hashes to get the actual identity?
Can you repeat the last part? I didn't understand exactly.
Yeah, so on the slide where you all had the storage architecture layout,
right,
to identify the storage providers. Yeah, that one.
That one?
Yeah. Last one? Yeah. The storage segments, sorry. That hash mechanism that you're doing at the bottom, are you all adding the hashes together, or are you concatenating them and then taking the hash of that?
I'm not sure exactly.
Yeah, I think so far, to be honest, I think we work with BNB Chain right now, right? It's still in the white paper, but this is just like initial idea. Absolutely, you can just imagine, right? The data is still saved into the storage, underlying storage provider. But how can you link that one? You have to, absolutely, you need to have this kind of hash to connect this one. And of course, this hash need to link to, if we go back to this, right? Go back to the next page, because this one, the data is saved here. But how can you make sure this data can be reflected into this Greenfield resource? That's managed by the Greenfield blockchain. And this one also be mapped through this layer between the Greenfield blockchain and the BSC blockchain, which is a Greenfield resource mirror. I think this hash will be linked together.
And you identify with the hash.
Yeah, exactly. So through this one, we can have access control to this resource. Then you can access this file directly.
Interesting. Okay, that clarified a lot.
So that's the idea. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Sure. Thank you.
Hey, I was wondering how you guys are achieving payment streaming.
Sorry?
I was wondering how you guys are doing payment streaming.
So the payment streaming, that's a really great question. I know we are still working on it because it's one of the hardest parts, because we're going to have so you're going to like, if I'm correct, we will need to look at the white paper exactly, but basically going to have a kind of a credit, and that credit is going to be consumed frequently based on the different type of agreement that you have with the storage provider. So when you're going to upload a file, you can as well specify how long you want this file to be uploaded. Is it 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 1 year? And let's say you have then this credit of 1 year. Then your account is basically getting deducted on a, I don't know, daily or hourly basis. I don't remember exactly anymore. But then once you don't have this credit anymore, the storage provider is it's his choice. Like he can either like keep the file for a bit longer, like to give you time to come back basically, or if he wants, he can basically delete the file as well. So as long as the payment is not working anymore, the storage provider can delete the file. But it's going to be like a stream of like, every time that there's an action, basically, the credit is going to get deducted from the accounts.
As we are working with their API, right, provide this kind of a tooling right now. Sorry, we do not get a UI today. But basically, there are multiple type of the payments right now, right? For example, you need to have a store, which means you want to open the specific, which is quite similar as the Dropbox way, right? You need to pay what's the size for your storage. So this is like a one time. It not necessarily have like streaming payment. However, somebody will use your this data. That's a download, right? Which can be like pay by use because they do not need to access your full storage. So that's something like we are working with them for that one right now, right? They not only provide this kind of the mechanism, but also SDK. So other streaming payment can integrate with that. But that's the idea we're doing right now. Yeah.
Maybe in follow-up, what was the reasoning behind the decision to charge in USD? Are you expecting enterprise or traditional kind of AWS customers?
So we feel like it's easier for a user to understand like what's the true cost and really how we can compare it with like the traditional storage providers like Dropbox, Google Cloud, AWS 3. So this is the base currency that everyone is using when they want to use such kind of services. So we want to make it seamless for the user. Because if we charge it with token, there's too much valuation, like a constant change in price.
So are you hedging the USD to the token price? Because if the token's going like this, you're not necessarily charging like this every month, are you?
So you'll need to make sure that you have enough BNB that's in your accounts to handle as well like the fluctuation.
I get it. Okay.
The payment you are going to make today might not be the same as you make in 1 month, for sure.
Okay.
But yet you still understand how much it will be like from a USD perspective.
I get it.
Because at the end, the user, or the builders, when they're going to build, the end payment from the user is probably going to be USD as well, like when you build the application on top of it. So I think it's really meant for builders and not for like just retail user. So let's say you are a publisher, you want to publish a website where a journalist can basically publish his artwork. And then these journalists want to resell as well, like a membership. So this membership will be paid in USD, for example. So that's why it's more like built like that, because it's really more for builders and not necessarily for retail.
Thank you.
Hi, I have a question regarding this DLAM architecture. From this DLAM architecture, I can say that there is a resource mirror layer between BSC and Greenfield, and use the reliers to synchronize the resource across these two blockchain. Will this be a latency concerns in the future? Because you have to keep the resource as synchronized in two blockchain. And there is always gonna be efficiency cost in that, especially when user create objects. Following on that question is that have you ever think about some other approach, like I say other solution trying to do is that they don't use the synchronization ways to keep the resource across two blockchain. However, what they does is that they keep the resource separately created, modified just in one blockchain and use the ZK roll up to other chains which keep the efficiency. So just want to know why you make that choice and what's the sense behind.
That's a really deep question, to be honest. I don't really know how to answer, to be honest. I think we will need to discuss more like with our core tech team. And did you scan the group as well to join the early access?
My phone is out of power.
Okay, but
so.
I will add you after, because I think it's definitely a great question, and especially like when we're going to scale to a higher, to really be able to scale like this Greenfield ledger as well. I think, or like when you have like a lot of file, like for sure when you upload only one file, it's okay, but if you upload like 10,000 file, how is the network going to sustain itself?
Exactly.
That's the key question as well.
Exactly. Not only just about latency, but also gonna use up all your transactions in the BSC. Because right now, BSC, it's TPS like 6,000 to 7,000. But with this architecture, eventually, there may be a lot of TPS will be occupied by the operation gonna happen in Greenfield and gonna be synchronized in the BSC.
Right.
But just a little bit concerned.
So Greenfield is going to be like Tendermint, so definitely like from a performance point of view, it's going to be much higher, the BSC.
Okay.
But after, as you said, like the connection with BSC, how we can make sure that this one is scaling as well with the usage, that's a good research to do, I think, with our team to make sure that we're able to answer this question.
Okay, okay.
So my question is like how exactly we can use the Greenfield, like is there any RPC endpoint, API endpoint, or like any chain info?
A bit louder.
Closer? Can you closer?
Yeah, my question is like how exactly can we use Greenfield, like is there any RPC or API endpoint or like chain info that we can add?
Right, so there's going to be like direct API endpoints. Like Don't Read is actually providing tools for it. So maybe you can discuss, like, I don't know
I did not get the question. What's the
how we
question?
can use Greenfield. Like what are the tools that are going to be here?
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
or when are you planning to deliver it?
Yeah. I think that, there are multiple places, right? You can see that there's different access layers to this one. So actually, if you see this one, even without the BNB chain, right, BSC, the Greenfield itself can be exists themselves, right? So which means you can access the storage directly from here, access storage directly from here as well, because the address, we did not mention the account system. The account
Right.
system here are exact same. Means that you have a BSC address, you can access this. You can have that one, right? So here, which means you through the EVM, all of this EVM, if you are the EVM coder, you can access all of the, through the smart contract already you can access this one. And if you are the data access operator, let's say you want to get the download data or something, right? You can access, if you have the access, you can call this storage provider API, which is exactly similar as S3 APIs, right? Very easily to get the data out. So there are multiple access points, right, to get you connected. I think for this one, majorly maybe connected through the typical RPC way, right, to Candas. And this one maybe, goes through this very straightforward, like a hash-based way, URL like based way, right, to access these files. So that's the typical way to access the, this whole system. Yeah. Hopefully there's no dramatic change for the existing program language and also user experience there. Yeah.
So I asked this like before because like we wanted to use it and like to make something. That's why like how exactly can we like is there any documentation that we can refer?
Right, so the core team is currently finalizing the alpha release. So like you can join, you can add me after, and then I can add you as well to like, and I can let you know once it's released. I think our alpha should be out like in 2 or 3 weeks. So should be quite early, and then we can start like seeing like how we can exactly use it, what is missing as well, and like how we can, what's the pain point that we might have in the future as well about scalability, for example. Yeah. So I think in 2 or 3 weeks we might have like more clear information of like how we can connect, how we can utilize it, and how is the, let's say, flow from an application point of view.
Actually, all of this will be open source. Greenfield will open source, right? So which means absolutely, welcome more like builders, right, to help us together to join this BNB Chain community. It's quite exciting. We feel like, we are building this kind of API and initial Explorer. We will build this Greenfield Explorer and also Greenfield Dropbox application as the first contribution there. If you have any like idea, right, feel free to jump down. I think even the docs maybe can help a lot, right? So that's
definitely we are looking for a lot of help like from the community to like increase and enhance the solution.
Yeah, I also have one more question. Like, can you go to the slide where you compare other with other? Yeah. So what kind of like data availability proof like is Greenfield using? Like, as far as I know, in Filecoin they use like proof of space time to like to verify that they are storing actually storing it on the chain. Like what is Greenfield using in that?
So for that we have the proof of challenge, which is the one.
Yeah, my question was like, what is that exactly? Like?
Where it's happening?
Yeah.
So it's going to be the Greenfield validator. So those validator are the one which are doing the ledger basically, and those validator, one of the specific tasks that they have to do is to do this proof of challenge. So something that maybe I forgot to mention, so the Greenfield validator are completely separate from the storage provider. So they are not you can have one entity which have one validator and one storage provider, but most of the time the validator are not going to be the storage provider. So they are running two different systems as well. So of course, like the validator is not going to do the challenge towards himself. Like if this was the question, it's definitely like the validator, they are different entities compared to the storage provider. So of course, like once those entities are doing the proof of challenge, they have no, let's say, link with the storage provider, so they cannot collide together, for example.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for everyone. Maybe I will just add this quickly. So feel free to join us.